Luis, thank you so much for joining me here today on the Ripple Effect with Ray. So excited to dive into all things Ready Rebound. Would you be able to start us off here? Tell me, how and why did you start Ready Rebound? Where did that come from?
Yeah, so to give you a little bit of context, by training, I'm actually a physical therapist and an athletic trainer. I spent most of my career, or started my career here in the Midwest, where our corporate offices are currently located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I went to undergrad and grad school at Marquette University and had the chance to move to Phoenix, Arizona, and work for a company that specialized in Major League Baseball rehabilitations on the physical therapy side of the house, and was there for 4 years. And then for 5 years, I was the rehab director at Arizona State University. So my background was really heavy in sports medicine. I had the chance to move back to the Midwest. And during my move back here and in opening my own practice, I discovered one of my college classmates had become the health and safety officer for the city of Milwaukee's fire department. And he and our chief medical officer at the time had come to my office and said, "Hey, Luis, why is it in baseball someone could get injured on January 1st with a shoulder injury, and you have them back out in the field by June or July, and we have firefighters tear their shoulder up on the same January 1st, and it takes our guys 18 months to get back, quote unquote, on the field, right? Two, three, four times as long sometimes for the same type of injury. Why is it taking our folks so much longer to get back?" And what we discovered that was very interesting to me was that it was as much about process as it was access. So firefighters were getting injured and they get put through the system called workers' compensation, which is really set up. The initial intention of it was to support the worker, but over the years, I think that workers' compensation system, because it's so divided nationally, every state has its own rules, every city has its own rules within those states. And then there's multiple vendors that live in the onion of this thing called workers' compensation that people have, and then you combine that with people believing that sometimes workers are malingering, that they don't want to actually go back to work. So you combine this really complex system with this weird core belief that like people actually don't want to work. And it really creates barriers in the healthcare healing continuum. So when we looked at the work comp and how it was set up at in the city of Milwaukee, I said, "Well, why do you guys do it this way?" Right? And they said, "Well, what other way is there to do it?" I said, "Well, in baseball or in football, if my quarterback gets injured at noon on a Saturday, we know by 12:15 what the next steps are because the coach has to make real-time decisions. And the athletic trainer and the orthopedic surgeon and the physical therapist are all on the field pulling this person off the field to make decisions on like, are they out for the series? Are they out for the game? Are they out for the season? Are they out for their career potentially? Right. So all those decisions are being made in real time so that the coach can make moves in real time. And the fire chief from Milwaukee, Mark Rolfing at the time, had said, "Well, Luis, the same thing exists for us here. It's not like we show up to your house, down one firefighter, right?" So because of that, it feels very similar to like the things that you guys are already doing in sports medicine. So we said, "Listen, as long as you guys can abide by the rules that our city has in place and the rules that our insurance company and the state have in place, if you could help us expedite things and move things along in the systems faster, that would just help us tremendously." So really from 2010 to 2015, it was firefighters just calling my cell phone saying, "Hey, I got hurt last night. Can you help me out? I hurt my knee, I hurt my shoulder." And I think the first year, maybe I had three people call. But the next year, because those three people had such a great experience, I had 15 people call. And then I had 30 people call, right? And it just kept compounding. And in 2014, when we had a decent set of patients actually calling my cell phone, what I didn't know is that the fire chief behind the scenes had been connecting dots in regards to us compressing care. So it was the same care journey. We were just taking what was taking them 18 months and compressing it into, let's say, 8 months, right, of time. Healing stays the same. All of the stuff stays the same. We just compressed it all. And in that savings on the back end was where the fire chief was saving real dollars that he could apply back to different city initiatives that he wanted to apply to.
Amazing. Well, that's so interesting. And like there were so many things that you had just said about the continuum of healing, right?
Yep.
This idea that maybe some of these people, I think when it comes to sports medicine, I think a lot of these major league players, even more lesser known, they're ready to go back to work as soon as possible. They want to be playing baseball. They want to be playing football, right? Whereas like, people on the front lines maybe are like, well, they're probably really burnt out, overwhelmed, and maybe not so excited, right,
Correct.
to
Exactly.
get back there, right? So I'm interested, what have you been seeing as far as just like you focus on, it sounds to me like you shifted to the focusing on healing of people on the front lines, right? What have you been noticing in the industry overall when it comes to heal times, rehabilitation, and healing?
Yeah, it's a great question, actually. So, with the advent of these new technologies in AI, ChatGPT, Gemini, we've been able to kind of zoom out a little bit more and say, because we're in 21 states, we work with 400 cities, right? We don't discriminate against size of city. So my smallest department is in northern Wisconsin that has two sworn police officers, and my largest department is Cal Fire, and they have 12,000 sworn firefighters, right? And then everyone in between. So but regionally, we started to get some pressure, right? Some questions from some of the folks saying in Sacramento, it's different. In LA, it's different. In Denver, in New Orleans, it's everyone's, our region's a little different. We're like, we actually didn't know. We had taken national data and applied it to our metrics and said, this seems generally directionally about right. What we're actually finding is that we're actually undervaluing our service, if I'm being honest with you, in that the times, especially in a post-COVID world, the times to get access to these providers is actually even longer than anticipated, right? And what we talk about is creating the right landing spots, right? Connecting feature to benefit is how we think about things. So shoulder doctor, knee doctor, right? Which you would think is kind of common, but sometimes that doesn't happen. And in it not happening creates these huge caverns of extra time and waste in the system, right? Waste, waste for the employer, waste for the doctor's time. Like they're seeing a shoulder and they're a knee doctor. Like they're like, how did you get on my calendar, right? So it's eliminating all of those little friction points that show up along the way.
Absolutely. And making sure that people are being paired with the right people, I think is really important that like people are getting taken care of in the right way. What would you say has been one of your greatest either teachers or learnings, maybe even pain points as things currently stand?
Yeah, I would say our biggest one is that we did a really amazing job of establishing relationships with our fire chiefs and our union presidents and our police chiefs. You can only assume when I say this that there's no police chief or fire chief or union president in the entire country that would say, "Nah, I don't want to treat my first responders like athletes." Right? It's just not going to happen. We always can cross that cavern pretty easy. That second cavern, though, is when we get engaged with human resources, the risk manager, and the CFO of the cities that we work with, because they're looking at different metrics, right? And what we're hearing, we've dove deeper into personas, is that HR and risk are saying, hey, that's a great tool for the firefighter or the police officer. We actually would like this to be applied to all of our employees. What would a solution look like from Ready Rebound to actually do this for all of our city? Because it makes it better for them. They're not treating a certain employee group or category a certain way. It's actually better for them and easier for them to apply it. Now, on our end of it as Ready Rebound, we're saying yes, and they do require a different level of skill and treatment. I wouldn't send my quarterback at ASU to see a random orthopedic surgeon or a random PT that like doesn't understand the mechanics of throwing a football, right? So we do require, those folks do require a different type of orthopedic surgeon, neurologist, pain management doctor. Like it is different, and there is a little bit of tension still in us having that conversation.
So it sounds to me like bridging the gap and the differences and like making sure that it's not just a random PT, it's somebody that actually knows the anatomy, the mechanics of the body. They might not treat a quarterback the same they would a firefighter or an
Yep,
employee of a business, right? Um,
correct.
and so as far as things are right now, it sounds like things have been going really well. And maybe you're looking to expand into other areas, like even workers' comp when it comes to employees, right? Where do you hope to be in the next 6 months, 12 months from now?
Yeah, for us, I think we've been hyper focused on what's here and in front of us, right? We work with 400 police fire agencies around the US. And in those 400, we also know that I believe there's 3,800 government agencies in the US. So we've barely scratched the surface, just staying focused on fire, police, EMS, and public works. So we need to continue in the next 6 months, 8 months to really stay hyper focused and not get distracted by other things that show up in our world. Because we get approached all the time regarding what we're now calling as a company essential employees. So think about the folks that were working during COVID, right? Planes were still flying, nurses were still working, deliveries were still being made, trains were still functioning, right? Baggage handlers, those types of things. We've been approached by some larger companies that said, well, what about us? What about our folks? And we're open to it, but we also know that that could be distracting to the company. So we're just trying to stay super focused on getting really good at what we're really good at.
Absolutely. Like focusing on one niche or maybe even just like having a more broad niche, but how can you
Correct.
actually really hone in on the craft, do what you're
Yeah.
doing? And it sounds like it's been going well. And
Yeah,
then
which is the hard
really,
part, right? Because I'm the founder, right? I'm not supposed to be the focus guy.
right. Yes,
So you almost have to like put that hat on and like dive right into like that work, which it just needs to be done right now.
exactly. And so what would you say has been really your guiding light, your North Star through all of this?
Yeah, it's the member stories. So every month we host an all staff meeting, virtual meeting. And we always start that call with an actual end user. So a firefighter, a cop, a family member who's called in the hotline and had an experience with us, right? And we let them tell their story of like how they got injured, why they called the hotline, because it's an optional program too, right? So they don't get forced to get into Ready Rebound. They choose to call our hotline, right? So what made them want to choose, and then what was their experience? And it's neat for two reasons. One is for me, that's the North Star and will always be the North Star is just making sure that these men and women get taken care of properly. But the other interesting part is our technology is a 1-800 number. So it's the first time they actually even see their navigator in person. So they could have been working with someone for 6 months, and it's the first time they actually see them. And you could see like how deep a relationship with someone you can form over the phone that like although video is important, it's not necessary. It could be as simple as a 1-800 number still, right?
Absolutely. And that's an amazing point to make that even if I feel like we probably sometimes associate 1-800 as being impersonal, but there's still like
Correct.
this personal element of it and they actually can connect and get to the right place that they need to. So, Luis, thank you so much for joining me here today on the Ripple
Absolutely.
Effect with Ray. How can people find you? What sorts of people can you help? And how can people get in touch?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is www.readyrebound.com. And you could always email me directly too at just L Rivera, Rivera at readyrebound.com. And we're interested in talking to lots of people, mainly because as a healthcare organization, we're still learning, right? And the system's so complex. And we've had people reach out to say, well, we're involved in this piece of it, and we think if you could help us smooth this corner out, that it'll make our process better too, right? So it's almost forming these partnerships with the best of intentions of mind, which is take care of the human at the center of it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for being here. It was such a pleasure to get to sit down with you and get to learn more about Ready Rebound.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.